Hi, my name is Norm Fost. I'm a pediatrician and director of a bioethics program at the University of Wisconsin, which I started in 1973. And I'm on part of an advisory board here for the Dr. Lantos's ethics program at the Children's Hospital. Yeah, it depends on how you define pediatric bioethics. So there's a lot of bioethics multidisciplinary bioethics programs in the United States that address a range of issues in bioethics, including pediatrics, and in which there are pediatricians, such as myself, as part of a program. So in which pediatricians have obtained training, like Dr. Clayton, who did part of her residency training in Madison and also developed her bioethics career there. There is at least one other program that is entirely focused on pediatrics, which is at the University of Washington, the Seattle Children's Hospital, run by two people who got their initial training in bioethics at the University of Wisconsin. So those are the only two that come to mind off that and here off the top of my head that are sort of exclusively directed at pediatric bioethics. But I think there are other excellent places where people can get good training in pediatric bioethics. Well, I think the most important is the one that affects all people, not just children, and that's our falling down healthcare system. That is the unaffordable expense of it, the lack of access to it for everyone. And that affects children even more than adults because they start off life at a disadvantage because their parents don't have adequate health care. Lack of prenatal care can lead to injuries to children. So that huge problem of the American healthcare system, I think, affects children disproportionately. Getting down to more specific issues, I think one of the big issues that's going to require a lot of attention in the coming years is the expansion of genetic testing. We now have the technology that's becoming affordable to not just test for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 20 diseases, but thousands of disorders. And I think the application of this kind of technology to newborn screening, for example, is going to create a tsunami of problems and issues that are going to need attention. And a lot of good people are thinking of that and working on it now, but I think there's no consensus yet about what to do about that. You ask what kind of training would be good for people who are interested in bioethics who have careers in pediatrics. It depends. I mean, what journey you should take depends on where you want to wind up. So if they want to be a full-time academic and do scholarship in bioethics, they should get some intense and rigorous training. Not necessarily a degree, but a lot of people get degrees in bioethics-related fields, law degrees, philosophy, politics, religion, and so on. But I think the main thing is not so much the degree, if you're going to try to do scholarly work, but to be immersed in it for an intense period of study for at least a year or two. Now, there are lots of people who are engaged in bioethics who don't necessarily want to go that deeply into it or don't have the time, but just want to be engaged in teaching in the clinical settings where they are, or serve on ethics committees, or serve on IRBs. And I think programs like the Children's Mercy Hospital are a good entree for those people to commit some time over the course of a year through a combination of distance learning and coming to Kansas City to expand their knowledge and to increase their depth so that they can at least participate in bioethics activities, teaching, service activities, and even writing. And then at the lower level, I mean, there are practitioners who just want to keep in touch with bioethics in the same way they want to keep informed about hematology and infectious disease and all the other things that are at the hearts of their careers. So annual conferences, symposia, reading articles, and so on, weekend courses, intensive courses. So there are lots of opportunities for that. So for example, the webinars that Dr. Lantos has established here as part of the Children's Mercy Program are available to everybody in the world. And you don't have to be enrolled in the year-long certificate program. One can sign into those on a monthly basis and enrich and advance one's learning about the topics that come up there. Yeah, well, as I said before, I think the two biggest issues are, number one, the unsustainable costs of healthcare in this country and every other, which is driving the country bankrupt, driving business bankrupt. It's the single most common cause of personal bankruptcy. So many people think it's the most important issue facing this country. And because it's so expensive and so ineffective, it excludes people by the tens of millions. So that's the number one issue for sure, the runaway costs and its effect on the whole economy and on lack of access for effective health care. Short of that, as I mentioned earlier, I think genetic technology is exploding and now becoming affordable. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's just making it possible and likely to do thousands of tests on a single drop of blood. It's very hard to get informed consent for that kind of technology, but it just produces a tsunami of information, not all of which is helpful and some of which can be harmful. So how to deal with that in a way that's consistent with ethical principles, I think, is right now sort of the biggest issue that we have to face.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the Children's Mercy Bioethics Center?
Yes, I'm relatively new to it. I've been on the advisory board for a year, and this is my second visit, but I must say I'm tremendously impressed with what Dr. Lantos has done and what Children's Mercy has done, the resources that they've put into this and made it possible for dozens of people already around the country and in other countries to deepen their understanding of bioethics as it relates to pediatrics, to develop some writing skills and their critical thinking skills. So I think it's a great opportunity for people who don't have the time to take off a year and study in depth, but have the willingness and the motivation to spend intensive time over the course of a year and come to Kansas City a couple times to get some more intense exposure. I think it's great.